Finding out the truth about my wife. This could mean so many different things. To everyone complimenting my tan, thank you so much. That Italian sun is different than any other sun I have experienced. It's a different kind of bronze. Can we just look at how absolutely horrific I look right now? Guess who got sick after returning home from Italy? I'm not surprised because I was functioning on about 2 hours of sleep a day, if that, and I was exposed to a lot of germs, obviously in the airports and whatnot. Girl, is rough. And I came back and apparently it's all of a sudden winter over here in Canada. So the weather switch up was a lot. Your girl's very sick, but we're gonna rally today. Just don't look at me, all right? Close your eyes and watch the video. This story came December 16th, 2023. We spent 2 years together in college and got married the fall after we graduated. Spent 2 years exploring our relationship and finally got settled down and was ready to raise a family. She got off birth control and her libido took off, but it took 3 years for us to get pregnant, but we got a beautiful girl finally. After a couple of months, my wife got back on birth control and had a hard time with it. Her doctor switched her meds several times, but she had bad side effects with each one. We talked about it and we were unsure if we wanted another child, and since it was easier for me to get a vasectomy reversed later, if we decided to have more children, I had the operation. That was 3 years ago, and after coming off birth control, my wife has felt better and sex has been worry-free since we can no longer get pregnant. We actually have more sex now than we did when we were in college. Then 3 weeks ago, my wife was late for her period, which isn't that unusual for her. Then I noticed that her breasts were a little tender and she started what seemed like signs of morning sickness. Now I know there have been cases of nature reversing vasectomies, so I went to the doctor and I had my sperm count checked, and the verdict was that I'm still sterile. But I didn't tell my wife. My wife finally went to her doctor and confirmed that she was pregnant. And so she had me go to the doctor to also get tested. I didn't go right away because I was literally sick from the stress of the situation. Okay, so obviously we're assuming in this moment that wife has cheated since you cannot get someone pregnant. I had all sorts of sick scenarios going through my head. In the end, I got retested and I took my daughter in and I had a DNA test done. I got both test results back today and I got violently ill after reading them. Shut up. Yes, I'm sterile. And no, my daughter isn't mine? What? Oh, so she cheated before you even had your balls snipped. Oh my, wait. Is that what they snip? We've been through this. And I asked, what do they snip? They don't snip your balls off. Do they snip something in the... Okay, anyways, we're not gonna get into it again. They snip something. Snip, snap, snip, snap, snip, snap. When my wife got home, I showed her my test and she denied any wrongdoing and said that there was a problem with the test. And then I showed her the test from last week and she broke down crying. I finally got it out of her who she had slept with and that it only happened once and their rubber must have failed. I made her tell me the story 3 times, and each time I asked her if it was the whole truth and if there was anything else that she needed to tell me because another lie would mean we were through. You're not through after the first lie? And the fact she cheated in your marriage, but also hid the fact that your daughter is not yours. And maybe she didn't even know though. She probably was just like, well, let's cross our fingers that it's my husband's. She said that was the only time she had ever done anything like that before. I told her how much this hurt me and asked her how she could do this to our family and if it was worth it. I asked her if she wanted a divorce and she pleaded with me to forgive her and to put this behind us. I said I couldn't raise someone else's child and I asked her if she'd be willing to terminate the pregnancy in order to stay together. She cried the rest of the night, but when we went to bed, she said that she would do whatever it took to save our marriage. I never brought up the DNA test. I will contact a lawyer next week to see what my options are about if I have to pay child support on our first child. If she had come clean about the father of our first child, I could have swallowed my pride and tried to work to forgive her, but she thought she was in the clear and didn't need to confess to anything else. No telling what I'll never know. Now we have a lawyer update in the same post. My lawyer is awesome. She had me bring in a bunch of paperwork, bank statements, and my medical and DNA results and had me tell her my story. Her assistant sat in with us taking notes while my lawyer went through my documents. After I finished, she asked a few questions and spelled out my options. I live in an at-fault state, which is good and bad. Good as in it gives us leverage, bad as in it takes longer and is much more expensive. In the case of the first child, if my wife agrees to sign the papers, my liability for child support is an easy fix. If she doesn't agree, then a court-ordered DNA test and a judgment from the court can remove me without my wife's consent. Either way, I will most likely not have to pay child support. One way is just more expensive than the other. Since my wife has a good job and earns close to what I do, she didn't think the judge would reward her any alimony. And all of that, plus dividing up property and other things, can be negotiated before a judge gets involved. The bad news was, due to the holidays, they couldn't have the papers ready before Christmas, but definitely would before the end of the year. She advised me to say nothing until she got served. She gave me a list of things to do before and after Christmas before they served my wife. One thing they did point out was, since we were actively trying to have a baby, there was a possibility that my wife didn't know that the child wasn't mine. My wife has an appointment with her OB tomorrow. That's what I was saying. Maybe because you guys were also sleeping together and she slept with somebody else, she probably just was like, oh, we used a rubber. Let's hope that this is just my husband's. She probably didn't even know, which doesn't matter, really. We have our first update, and the first one came after Christmas on December 28th. So I met with my sister at my house, and we started moving my stuff to her house while the divorce goes through, or at least until my STBXW leaves and I get possession of the house. I'm not even gonna pretend or guess to know what the hell that stands for. We took 4 carloads to her house and came back for the rest. My sister felt it was important for her to be there for support and also as a witness. I also moved the nanny cam into the living room so it could record everything in the cloud. At about 10:45 a.m., I got a text from my lawyer saying that she had been served. I sent her an email saying that I am at the house when she is ready to talk. A couple of minutes later, I got a text from my wife saying, why, blah, blah, blah. So I resent the first text and I waited for her to get home. She sent several texts and also voicemails. They don't mention anything about cheating, just how she thought we were working this out and she thought that we would sit down and have a conversation before proceeding with the divorce. Playing the family card and how this will devastate the children and our families, how she feels betrayed. That was a good one. Don't you love when cheaters play the victim card? I just adore it. Can you see the hearts in my eyes? I adore it. She was still sharing her location, and it took her 20 minutes before she left work. She then stopped at a nearby Walgreens for a few minutes. The purpose of the stop at Walgreens became clear as a police car pulled in behind her in the driveway. According to the officers, she got the police there because she said she was afraid that we had weapons in the house. I showed the officers my empty safe and said that I had removed them to another secure location. We went back to the living room and I showed my wife the paternity test that I had done that showed her the daughter was not mine. Her response was denial and disbelief, which appeared genuine. She broke down and cried for about 10 minutes. I told her this was the final straw and that is why I wanted a divorce. At about that time, the police officers reminded me to keep it civil and made their exit after I told them I was leaving soon to stay at my sister's house. When I asked who the child's father was, she claimed she didn't know. I asked if there were that many guys that she was sleeping with, or did she just not know his name? I asked how many times she had cheated on me between pregnancies, to which she said it was just the 2 of them. Not even the same one. Oh my God. Honestly, the only people that get hurt in all of it, well, they get hurt too, but the main focus here is the children. The children are gonna have fathers that aren't even in their lives. Like, do the fathers even know they have a child out here? I told her that I had said earlier if she didn't tell me the whole truth that I was done. I reminded her I also told her that I couldn't and wouldn't raise someone else's child, and that she had better figure out who the real father was because I was not paying child support for someone else's baby. She wanted to know what we were going to tell our daughter, and I said that was up to her because this was her mess and I wasn't taking the blame or cleaning it up for her. I drafted a couple of emails last week, one for our friends and family with copies of all the test results and reasons why I was asking for divorce. The other for my wife with copies of the same tests along with what I knew and things that I had told her previously. I had to run it through my lawyer and make a couple of edits before she signed off on it. I sent copies to all our friends and relatives when she pulled into the driveway this afternoon. Most of the feedback has been one-sided and very colorful. In the end, I told her if she had been truthful, we might have been able to work things out. But I couldn't trust a lying serial cheater, and I told her if she had gotten her tubes tied instead of me getting a vasectomy, she might have gotten away with it. I told her she needed to get a lawyer so we could move forward and start to heal. Now, there was an update in this same post later in the day. We had our second meeting with the lawyers today and we signed off on almost everything except the house, still waiting for an appraisal to come back and figure out the split. Motions got filed today and a court-ordered paternity test was scheduled for all three of us. Since the STBXW didn't fight me on anything, we filed a no-fault divorce petition. If everything goes right, I get the house back on February 15th and the divorce will be final on April 5th. The lawyers did a better job keeping us separated and the conversation between the two of us to a minimum. I was a little worried when she came in, pale and with no energy to speak of. I couldn't tell if it was lack of sleep or maybe over-medicated. She just stared out the windows as the lawyers read everything to us before we signed some of the papers. Walking out felt like I had shed a giant weight from around my neck. HR got me signed up for therapy tomorrow. My boss had put a bottle of champagne on my desk, offered me some time off if I needed it, but I told him that I was excited to get back to work. So we do have another update, you guys, but apparently there was a huge gap in this story because one of the updates got deleted or something. But the OOP responded to a lot of comments, which gives us more clarity before we jump into the next update. These comments are going to be much needed for us to understand the next update, apparently. So let's get into it. Someone commented, did she disclose any more info about her infidelity / child's father's ID? Or is she running through the motions at this point? OOP responded, she had already told me who the bio dad was, but I don't know if I can believe her. Doesn't matter to me at this point. She did say she hasn't reached out to him yet, which makes me think she is deflecting. Not my monkey, not my circus anymore. I feel like Mans doesn't even know that he had a daughter, because if she didn't know the daughter wasn't the affair partner's, she wouldn't really have the info to tell him that, because she was thinking it was husband's this whole time. Bold assumption when you're sleeping with multiple people, but hey. Someone else commented, did you know bio dad? Was he part of your friend group? What happened at the first meeting with the lawyers? OOP responded, I think I remember meeting him a time or two, but he was not part of our friend group. The first meeting was just a prelim with my lawyer outlining our terms and what we intended to do if she contested to any of our terms. Someone else commented, how are you doing? Can you update us? In which OOP responded, my ex got her share of the equity on the house and has already moved into her new apartment and I moved back in tomorrow. A court-ordered DNA test came back and the judge has approved the motions to terminate my parental rights and obligations. The divorce won't be final till April, but for all intents and purposes, I am free. The only contact I have with my ex is messages through my lawyer or meetings at my lawyer's office with her present. I blocked the ex and some of her family and friends. She has said she wants to sit down and talk at some point, but my lawyer said it should wait until after the divorce is final. I had dinner with affair partner's wife again. As we keep each other up to date on our ex-spouses. I almost feel sorry for him. She got him fired and is determined to drag out the divorce and inflict as much pain as possible. I cannot wait to hear more about that in the next update. Someone responded to this and said, how did she get the affair partner fired? Was affair partner an employee of the school district? OOP responded, the affair partner worked for her family's business. So she told her dad and uncle who ran the business what he did. She didn't have to ask twice. They took his laptop, company phone, credit card, and company car the next morning with no notice. All he got was a cardboard box with his personal stuff and was escorted out, all in about 15 minutes. Wow. My question is, which affair partner is this? Because wasn't it two different men? Which affair partner are we talking about here? The same person wrote back, you had dinner with her twice, affair partner's wife. I get the impression that you like her. You could have easily caught up over the phone. Sometimes both BS become support systems for each other. It is not uncommon for both BS to really like each other and for more to develop. Or am I reading into this too much? Hold on, I have to look up what the BS meaning is for Reddit. Betrayed spouse. Good to know. I can see why the betrayed spouses could end up falling in love with each other. You guys are trauma bonding over the same trauma. OOP wrote back to this and said, comrades in arms, so to speak. We have been able to fill in the holes of what we know about our spouses' affairs, and we both have an interest in the fate of our exes and their affair partners. All evidence from both sides point to about 6 weeks and them meeting up 3 times. The amount of sex is hard to say. Now we're moving on to the final update, and this was a huge gap. This came 1 year later almost, December 20th, 2024. So now we have a little more information, all right? So Sharon is AP's wife and Stan is AP, the affair partner, all right? So moving into this, it's Stan, the villain, and Stan's wife, Sharon. Sharon and Stan, RIP to your marriage. So let's go into the final update. So throughout and after my divorce, I have kept in contact with Sharon as we have shared details about our ex's affair, and both of us were interested in the consequences that our spouses ended up suffering, and we provided each other much moral support. We talk on the phone and usually have dinner once or twice a month to catch up. Last month, Sharon said that one of her friends was getting married and had invited her to a wedding. Her ex, Stan, was also invited as he was a friend of the groom. Her invitation had a +1 and she pitched the idea of me going with her. Ooh! Both as moral support and as a dig to ex Stan. Wow. And this is also a dig for you because this is your wife's affair, your ex-wife's affair partner. So you can just show up and be like, I'm with your wife. You guys could even pretend, even if you're just friends, you could be like, put your arm around her, hold some hands. I'm being petty, but I don't really care. Why does it feel like there's blood in my mouth? Hold on. Ew. Am I bleeding? Yeah. You know when you have like the taste of blood or like pennies? Am I okay? Well, perfect time to hydrate because I don't know what's happening in my mouth. So, cheers. Let me wash down blood that's not there, but it tastes like it is. That's so bizarre. I'm like tasting metal. Oh, what is happening? All right, back to the petty wedding. It was a weekend event and we would share a room and double beds. Strictly platonic. The idea amused me, so I agreed. We flew in the day before the wedding and had dinner with several of Sharon's friends. I was introduced as her friend, no mention of our history and the divorce. We didn't run into Stan until right before the ceremony as they escorted us to the bride's side, while Stan was seated on the groom's side. Needless to say, he was less than pleased and kept looking over at us, something Sharon was well aware of. At the reception, we were seated with some of Sharon's friends from the night before, and we picked up where we left off and everyone was quite engaged. Stan was seated at a table across the room from us, but in clear view. We danced quite a bit together and probably drank more than we should have. There was a brief confrontation with Stan and Sharon, but her friends diffused it quickly and spirited Sharon away. At the hotel after the reception, we had drinks with 2 other couples. Several comments about Stan shooting daggers at us all night, and a few about how cute of a couple we made, and questions about if we were serious or not. We laughed it off and said that we were just friends. I had to support Sharon on the way to our room, and I had my arm around her. On the cramped elevator ride, we were standing quite close. When we got to the room, there was a tense moment, and we kissed! Good judgment lost out to the alcohol, and we ended up sleeping together. Okay. All right. Remember the whole strictly platonic thing? Yeah. They're in love. I'm getting ahead of myself. The next morning, we never spoke much about the elephant in the room as we rushed to catch our flight home. We did run into Stan as we were checking out, and he made a snide remark and walked off. Once we were on the plane, we talked about what happened, that neither of us were sorry, but also questioned the wisdom of the timing. We both agreed we each needed some time to process what happened and agreed to have dinner next week and talk about it then. I know neither of us have tried to date since our divorce. I haven't been in the right headspace to even flirt, much less plus date. I have a session already scheduled with my therapist where I will bring this up, but we did have a great weekend at the wedding. I'm not opposed to it, all right? I'm just not. Let's check out what everyone is feeling after this ending. Someone commented, poetic justice, if you ask me. You and Sharon are adults. If you enjoy each other's company, why not see what might develop? I agree. Someone else commented, bro, you can't just suddenly rise from the dead and just drop this little nugget and skip all the lore that went on in between. It's like we've skipped a movie in a series and lost the plot. Honestly though, thank God for those comments, you guys, because if we didn't have those, I would have been so confused if out of nowhere he's like, I've been talking to Sharon. Like, who's Sharon? So thank God for that. And I did go to the account of the OOP, and as you can see with this screenshot, there have been no updates ever since. So we don't know if they ended up together or not. Sadly. Maybe he'll be back though. I'll keep my eyes out. Let me know your thoughts and feelings. I'll see you guys in the comment section. Stay classy out there. Stay sassy. Bye.